The IPP nightmare continues. So yesterday, the 21st of May 2024, they were debating in the House of Lords on the IPPs about resentencing them and trying to get the incarcerated, the forgotten ones, back out into society. But as far as I gathered, nothing is changing. I was actually watching it to see what they're doing with people out here in the community who's on licence, like myself, and they didn't really speak much about that. But when I've been speaking to people afterwards, finding out what is happening, as far as I know, the licence is being changed to 3 years instead of the 10, and this won't come into effect until it goes back to the House of Commons and gets royal assent. Now, this is as far as I know, and that's everything I know on the licence. So that's good news for us out here in the community. But the ones in prison that have been in sometimes 5 times the amount of the sentence that the sentence that they were initially given. So some people that were given 3 years have been in 15, 16, 17, 18 years, and the nightmare is ongoing for them lot. Now, I know what it feels like to be in prison on IPP and get knockbacks, and a lot of these lads and lasses that are in prison now who have never been released will have been pinning their hopes on this debate yesterday. They'll have all been on the phones last night. The ones that got phones in the cells, that is, most of prisons have got phones in the cells now, but they'll have been on getting updates, trying to find out what's happening, pinning the hopes up on this. And they'll be feeling like they've just had, or they won't be feeling like they have just had another knockback. And that knockback will feel like they've had a parole hearing and they've been knocked back. And again, they'll feel forgotten about because this IPP scandal is ongoing. The general public, or the majority of them, don't even know nothing about this. When I tell people about it, or when I've put it on my YouTube channel and shared it on my socials, people in the comments are saying even law-abiding citizens out here don't agree with it. Even the majority of the Lords, the MPs, when I watched that debate yesterday, they had some good points. And when I was listening to Blunkett, I was listening to, I think it was Moylan, and it sounded very positive. But again, it's all talk, nothing has come of it. Like, the need to sort this scandal out once and for all. I was listening to some of the talks, the debates, and they were talking about the DPP, which is Detention for Public Protection, which was given to children under the age of 18. And believe this or not, they were talking about 2 cases they were referred to as John and Paul. I think it was John and Paul, or John and Peter. And John got the IPP when he was 15 years old. 15 years later, still in prison. He's been in prison the amount of time he's been alive. He was given IPP at 15-year-old. I don't know the ins and outs of the case or why he actually got the IPP. But given a fucking child of 15 or 13, even worse. I can't remember that case study as much, but I'm something like he got a short tariff of around about, say, 18 months, for instance. And he's been in, or he done, over 10 years. A 13-year-old boy given IPP, never been given a chance in life. These same kids have been battered and abused all their lives as children, been disowned, been put into foster care, had the worst upbringing imaginable. And what does the system do to them? Incarcerate them for 99 years and be forgotten about. Imagine, I think they ended up in mental hospitals, but imagine being brought into a life like that. Parents are probably drug addicts. You've had a bad upbringing. Your parents have disowned you. You've had to fend for yourself. You're getting into trouble because that's all you've ever known. And what does the system do instead of helping you? Taking you out of the area, taking you into another city or whatever. moving counties, getting them away from all the trash and the rubbish that they've been surrounded by. They put them in jail with the same type of people and leave them for 10 and 15 years. Children put into prison, never mature mentally because they've never had the life experience, and they're expecting them to come out and live a normal life. How can you live a normal life after suffering IPP or DPP and spending 15 years of your life in prison? Imagine this, being on an 18-month IPP, thinking that you could be home after 18 months or 2 years. 15, 16 years later, you're still sitting there, and people that have committed murders have come in and getting out before you. You've committed a street robbery. Yes, you've done wrong, you deserve time, and you've been sentenced to 18 months IPP, and you're still sitting there 15, 16 years later, but people have come in and brutally murdered people. Hitmen. I know one case of a hitman came in, done 20 years and got out. And then somebody who stole a bike at knife point, a street robbery, of another like-minded kid. Yes, it was wrong. Of course it was. I'm not saying it wasn't. But he spent 18 years in prison. And somebody that blew someone's brains out has spent 20 years in. How can you comprehend that? Now, when they were debating it as well, they were talking about if you committed that same offence you got your IPP for now, you will be given a normal sentence, a determinate sentence with a release date. If you'd committed that offence before 2005, before the IPPs were in, you would have been given a normal sentence and you would have been getting on with your life now without this IPP hanging over you. So how can they justify that and not change anything? There was loads of things that was getting debated about, and this video was actually just going to be a couple of minute video. I'm sitting in my car, just finished work and been to the gym. I was just going to put a couple of minute video up, but the more I'm speaking about it here, there's more that's coming to light because there's a lot to talk about with this IPP. And again, nothing is happening for the ones that are inside incarcerated. Now, the reason why some of them aren't getting out now is because of their mental health. But they're suffering with their mental health because of the IPP. So how can this be fair and just when you could have been out after a couple of years, you spend 15, 16 years in prison, and when you're coming up for parole hearings, you've got mental health problems, but it's because you've been in prison for so long, you're suffering with post-traumatic stress because of the things you've seen in prison, because of the prison sentence that you're serving, and now they're using that as an excuse not to release you because you're suffering with your mental health. So what do? They give you a knockback, an 18-month knockback. 18 months later you come up again, but you're still suffering with them same mental health problems. You haven't had any help in the meantime. So what happens this time? You get another knockback because your mental health is deteriorating. Why don't you give these people the help they need, put them in a psychiatric ward, because that's what a lot of them do need now. But there's over 100 committed suicide on IPP, over 90 in prison, and there's over a dozen out here in the community in fear of recall back to prison. So they think the only way out is by killing themselves. There was a case in Garth prison. An inmate killed himself and he wrote on his stomach, I think he carved it in with a razor blade, he wrote "free from IPP," and he was found in his cell, dead, with them words scratched into his body. That was the only way he could see freedom, by leaving prison in a body bag. Now if that isn't a sorry state of affairs, I don't know what is. This ongoing scandal, it will get rectified one day, but it could be another 5 years, 10 years, and then it's going to be massive in the media, the biggest scandal in the prison system's history. But that's no good to the ones serving it and the ones out here in the community serving it. But the only good thing about when you do finally get released is that the licence is going down to 3 years instead of 10 years. It's always been 99 years. But if you applied after 10 years and it wasn't successful, you could still technically be on it for the rest of your life. But what is happening now is it's been moved from 10 years to 3 years. And if you're not successful after the 3-year mark, 2 years later, it will be automatically terminated if you haven't been recalled to prison. If you do get recalled to prison after you've done the 3 years, then when you get re-released, you've got to do another 2 years without getting recalled back to prison. Yes, it's still unfair, but it is a lot better than what we have been doing out here in the community. I was out here for nearly 10 years and then got recalled to prison. I've been back out for 3.5 years now, and I'll be getting mine terminated as soon as this gets the Royal Assent in the House of Commons, along with thousands of other IPPs out here in the community who rightly deserve to get on with their lives and leave this behind. But I will cover a lot more about the IPPs when I find out more. But I do want to give a massive shout out to 2 ladies in particular who's been campaigning for us for a number of years, and they've went above and beyond the call of duty to help IPPs. The reason why they're helping the IPPs, Shirley de Bono and Donna Mooney, is because Shirley de Bono's son is serving IPP. He's now back in prison on a recall. Donna Mooney's brother, Tommy, may he rest in peace. The poor lad ended up killing himself in prison. And Donna has been campaigning ever since for the IPPs still in prison, because she wants to fight on in her brother's name, and rightly so. But a massive shout out to you 2 ladies for doing all you've done for us. It does not go unnoticed. You might not feel you get enough praise, but I'll tell you something. All the IPPs in and out of prison, thank you very much. And that comes from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for everything you're doing for all of us to try and right this wrong. There is a lot more campaigners out there, but I believe that these 2 are at the head of it, campaigning for us all. But this video has went on quite a while. I did actually, because of the angle, I've got it like that instead of having it sideways. I thought I was just going to do a 2-minute video, but because these IPPs go so in depth and there's so much to talk about, it went on quite a while. But I am going to be doing some interviews soon with people who have suffered through the IPPs, and I will mention this person that's just served 16 years and he went up to appeal against his sentence. I can't remember his name, but I will talk about it a bit more in another video. He went up to appeal against his sentence. He served 16 years of a few-year tariff, and the judges ruled in favour of him, saying that he should never have been given IPP. He's been in prison for 16 years. They won't let him out because they're saying he's a danger to the public. But he goes up and appeals against his sentence, and he gets told, or the judges are in his favour, and he wins his appeal against sentence. So his sentence is terminated, and they'll let him out immediately from prison with no supervision or anything into the community. But for 16 years he's been branded a danger to the public, and then all of a sudden he's let out. If they can do it with the likes of him, they can do it with a whole lot more, and try and get the rest of these lads and lasses out from the incarcerated IPP. But I will try and get, Shirley did mention him, I think she's going to meet him, but I will maybe try and get him on and do a podcast with him. Haven't done many podcasts lately, but I am going to try and fit a few more in because people do find them interesting and there's a lot to talk about. But I'll leave that one there for now, people. Hopefully you did enjoy that little bit talk. But stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day.